Okay, you're good again.
Hello, my name is Jim Ferguson. I'm with OU with Oscar here, and I'm a research computing facilitator. Before I came to OU, my job was as a director of education outreach and training at the University of Tennessee's High Performance Computing Center. So I have a little bit of background in especially broadening the constituency at the University of Tennessee, not necessarily in identifying target populations there, although we did bring in some new people while I was there. So I have at least the last several years of background of job, and you know, it's very interesting. There are many different ideas people have about bringing in new people to your computing center, and I'm going to really ask all of you to help participate, because I'm sure most of you in the room have done this sort of exercise. Maybe not even as an exercise. You've gone out and tried to get constituents for your computing center, be it people who already compute and have their own hardware, and you're trying to bring them in under your tent, or people who already compute, but compute small and maybe growing up, and you're trying to recruit them to come in, again, to be under your tent because you have some sort of central computing facility and would like to help them out. So I just have really a couple of slides to try to start the conversation off. So first is, so in some places, so why do we want to do this? Our cluster is already busy. We have more trouble tickets and users than we care to try, or we can bat back successfully right now. For storage, we're always yelling at people to move their storage off. And, we're always purging storage off. You know, my answer is the third bullet, right? It's kind of a silly question, at least for me. I've always been sort of a computational pusher, and I imagine a lot of people in the same room have the same mindset. We like to be able to enable computational scientists, and we want them to be on our system, even if it gives us headaches because we have too many people already, or what we think of as too many people already. Where to start? I guess I'd like to hear if anyone in the room, or if you want to type in a comment or comment from Zoom land, what is your experience as either as a startup computing center you may be part of, or coming into one that's fairly mature and maybe already has a lot of customers? What is it that your center, you personally, or others at your center, or people you work with, that part of your job, what have you done to try to reach out to new places on campus, or to people you know who already use high performance computing, you know, with their own cluster in the closet in their department? Any comments at all on techniques? Go ahead.
Yeah, easy situation is mostly when they have a problem with their cluster, and normally their PhD student is an admin, and he doesn't know further, and then he comes and asks for help. And yeah, of course, he gives the help, and we also start to discuss why you are putting your resources with our resources together, and you have access to more, and we can be the admin for it, and your PhD student can relax. So that is one of the easiest situations. The not so easy situations are when they are getting like, oh, yes, I used your cluster, but my students couldn't continue because there were so many jobs on it that they had to wait, and we had to pay for deadline, the typical situation. Um, I must say, one of the reactions is, yes, we have also teams who contribute money to the cluster, but they get another priority in these situations. That's the way it is. Money goes to work for free, but if you have groups who are contributing money, they get priority in high load times. And some of them are just annoyed, but some are also giving them.
Okay, so to repeat, it's sometimes it's someone who has their cluster in a closet and they've run into trouble. They're on their second graduate student that is trying to take care of it, and the first expert one has graduated or somehow escaped.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Second one comes along, gets assigned there, and is lost. And so it looks around for help and finds an organization on campus that's already doing clusters. So I love that. That's the easy case.
That's the easiest case. Yeah.
In the harder case, yeah, when someone's been using your system and is backed up a little bit and has thought, oh, I need to buy my own hardware. Now, here at Oscar, we have several research groups who buy their own equipment and add it to our system because we administer it for them for free. The university pays for the administrators to take care of these extra. I'm not sure, I'm not sure how many more additional condos we could get on our cluster. Henry would know this better than I. How many more additional condos we could put on our cluster before Henry would have to ask for an additional administrator. But I'm not sure that's even an equation. But there's some sort of feel for that, the burden at the university level. So it's buy-in here. We have by the way, we have really no barriers to get onto our cluster. I know at other places they might have accounting where they hand out an allocation, and then users could use up to a certain number of hours. But I know that that's less common, at least among the small to medium size clusters.
Yeah, it also depends. I mean, some of the users for testing purposes, like CM5 2 years ago. So some people get in the new architectures interested, or we have a GPU cluster. And we got one big GPU cluster funded 2 years ago by an MRI. And we really had to restrict the access because there were so many jobs on it. And we still had to reason that we bring it through our research cases. That we had to say, oh, we really have to come to run the jobs just for research, and then we can open it again. So we made very positive experience. People wanted to try something, and algorithms for other architectures. They wouldn't buy directly for their own groups.
Right. So for the specialized hardware that you brought in with the grant, you needed to throttle that somewhat with I assume proposals, or at least description. The University of Tennessee to get on was a fairly low bar, but you still had to send in a paragraph or two on what you were doing, on what your science was. But we already had, because we were also providing NSF cycles, we brought in the machine with an NSF grant. We already had accounting in place. That was paid for. We had to have accounting on it for to be an Exceed or NSF TeraGrid center, and so so there wasn't that step up in complexity, or we didn't have to put in an accounting system. It was already on there. So that was that was easy for us. And we tried to make the step up to get on our system with our local faculty to make it easy. So it's just like one paragraph or two that they can cut out of some other proposal that they wrote that describes what their science was. And then we give them an allocation. If they ran out of that allocation, we would generally just give them some more. So it was a fairly low bar, but still, I know that's unusual. Most folks, and like we at OU, it's just a request for an account that comes in. Let's see. So how do you find new users? And I just listed a couple of ways on here that I may have used once or twice.
So there's a couple primary ways that we get new users on our system. Typically, it's new faculty coming in. We'll work with the college that they're going to be working for to come up with some sort of startup allocation with a combined compute and storage agreement for 3 or 5 years. Sometimes we'll actually do a ramp-up allocation, so they'll start off with like 40 cores, and then the next year they'll go to 100 cores, and they just continue to ramp up until their research starts to ramp down towards the end. So we'll work on startup packages where it's actually funded through their college, and sometimes it's partially funded through the institute that I work for. And then another way we do it is each college has an IT department at Penn State.
Okay.
And they have it's pretty recent, where they've created this like consultant IT role, and the consultant IT person will actually go throughout the college to identify what are the special resources that are needed. And they'll actually come to us and say, hey, faculty John Doe thinks they need GPUs. What can you help us out with? So it's almost like a liaison that the college has created. So that's another way.
That's nice. So you do there's a little bit of a chargeback at Penn State for use of your resources to their college. Sometimes, okay. Yeah.
So at Indiana University, the time during this week is that classes are starting, new faculty arriving on campus. So I just talked to the IT pros, which it sounds like at Penn State, that's what you were talking about. We've had IT pros for a long time, so I just went and talked to them about new things that are available in HPC at IU, so that when they're talking to people, they understand how to, where to send those people for support, and what new systems we might be bringing online, what new services. And then I also go to, we have 8 campuses to their new faculty orientation. We invite all of their new faculty to take our workshop training series, because our largest barrier to people using HPC is that they don't know how to use it. So we're talking about if we ever are able to get our training online so that they could take it at midnight if they want to, that might be a barrier that we put up, so that people have, they take intro to Unix, are adept at Unix, and then before they start using the parallel supercomputer, that they actually take our intro to parallel computing or the intermediate parallel computing course. So that's the barrier right now. It's not required. So they can go.
They're just talking about it.
Yeah, we're just talking about that. But we have all these resources because we feel like people get on and then they fumble around for a while, and then they contact us for a consultation to help them. And we're happy to do that. But if they would just take the course in the first place, they'd probably not fumble around and get frustrated. But we go to schools as well. So we've been going and giving faculty talks like IEPY, we're going next week to the School of Engineering and Technology to talk to their grad students and faculty about the resources available, just how to get an account, what training is available for them, how can they get help. And then we're also doing that with like School of Public Health, I mean, non-traditional places too.
And how do you get those meetings?
It's all about networking and knowing people. Yeah.
Right.
And actually, it's to the point, so I was hired in 2013, it's to the point where they're reaching out to me now. I'm no longer having to do sort of that cold call that your first bullet up there. I'm really no longer having to do that as much because they know who I am. And so they just drop me a line and say, hey, our new faculty orientation is people and talk to us, let us know what's up.
Right, right.
One other way we're trying to remove barriers is we've developed a login system for getting on the supercomputers that doesn't require Unix. So last year I talked about a little bit about it's called Karst Desktop. Karst is the name of one of our supercomputers. That was so successful that we've now renamed it to Research Desktop, and they'll be able to log in through a web interface to any of the supercomputers. So that's another way that we're trying to lower the barrier for those people who maybe don't know Unix Linux that well.
We do a few of these measures, and in no particular order. In terms of getting on departmental meeting agendas, we definitely try to do that, and we're actually going to be trying a new thrust of that in conjunction with the library. But we've had mixed results of that. I mean, some departments welcome you, and they're like, sure, come on, we'll give you whatever time you need to kind of talk to us. Others are like, sure, you can come to our December faculty meeting at 4:30 in the afternoon, and no one's there.
On a Friday, right?
Yeah, on a Friday, right before. It's a real mixed bag there. We have the advantage that as a fairly small institution, it is, we are integrated with new faculty orientation, and we can actually take the step that it's very easy for us to at least extend the offer to meet personally with all of them.
Right.
So we have that chance to one-on-one, be very high touch with them and ask them about their research and about their teaching and all this kind of stuff to see whether we need to do that. We also do work in conjunction with the library because the entry point to services could be any one of a number of people. They might reach out to an ITS person, they might reach out to a librarian, they might reach out to whomever. And we need to be able to coordinate and make sure that they're receiving the same level of service regardless of where that entry point is. We also have efforts with our Office of Sponsored Research where if a potential grant just shows up, which sometimes does happen, and they haven't really consulted with anyone really, either the library or ITS specifically on like data management plans or whatever, we have an opportunity to be brought into that conversation when they submit that, which is really helpful for us. We can say, oh, well, we see that you're working on this grant. We have some questions, or we would like to extend our services to you to help you craft this proposal. And so we have a lot of entry points that may be more feasible for us given our small size.
Yeah. So it's 2,500 students or so, you said?
Right now it's 25, going up to about 29 in the next 5 years or so.
Okay. Yeah, Rob.
The other thing that we do is we go out and we have seminar series. So we have a seminar series at the library where we talk about HBC resources that are specific to the digital humanities or the arts. We have the seminar series in the social sciences research commons that is targeted towards social scientists. So we try to have these seminars every month or workshops every month that target different domains. And so that's two that I can think of off the top of my head. And a lot of that really has to do with visualization too. So we'll explain to them how they can visualize their data or run analysis and visualize their data, or how to step up to one of the visualization tools on campus and use those to visualize their data either for the class or for their graduate student or whatever to be able to do that.
We do that too, just to piggyback on that. We work with the Center for the Integration of Teaching, Learning, and Scholarship, which is essentially like the professional development arm of the faculty. and we do joint presentations with them a lot along those lines where we demonstrate stuff and actively try to recruit people.
So I mentioned the library down at the bottom. Now, not everybody has, not everybody's library has shifted over to hiring data librarians. They just, they had that going here at OU. They just hired, we just brought in 3 more in a cohort this last month. So they're going all in for that. And where I was before at UT, they were getting to it much more slowly. So I really didn't have any connection down there. There wasn't any connection. Just smaller starting up actually between the campus IT and the library. So, depending on what your campus is doing you'll have more or less success, I think, recruiting or at least standing shoulder to shoulder with the librarians to be able to pass people back and forth who have certain requirements, certain data requirements or compute requirements. I'm not sure how to ask this. So, is your center in IT or outside of IT? That's. I should have people raise their hand. If your center in IT, like here at OU, like that, and outside of IT, so half and half. Okay. At the last 2 places I was outside of IT in the High Performance Computing Center, and here I'm in IT. I'm still learning, learning how IT works. In here, it has gotten fairly centralized. There are not too many colleges that have their probably necessitates some of that, right? So I know at certain places. Yeah.
Some comments from out in TV land, real quick. Another bullet point for the why list: to save time in the future. Often via outreach, you can stop a user from messing things up big time because they're hesitant to ask for help. So if you're proactive about giving them help, they're less likely to have a problem. And then someone responded, that can free up cluster time. Sometimes users will do something very inefficient that's bad for them and everyone else's time. And then when we know a department head, we might ask for 15 minutes at a department meeting. It's enough time to plan to see her too.
Yeah. Again, circling back to my last job, some departments were fine for me coming and talking with them. Not very many. I mean, even though I had director in my name, it was Director of Education, Outreach, and Training. And I guess sort of my. Did I put that down? Oh yeah, the cold calling. Sometimes your job title matters when you're asking for a meeting. I got my director at Tennessee to make some of these calls to go to departmental or college meetings, and he got a much better response. And especially, the biggie was really the College of Engineering, because you had multiple department heads and different engineering departments there. And we got a significant uptick in on-campus use of our HPC resources after that. But also, also other departments. And that wasn't even his home department. So, his home department, of course, find coming in, but but let's face it, those folks have been doing computing for a while, so that wasn't any place they needed to recruit new people. Speaking of that, getting into the College of Engineering and talking directly to folks there, I know that there are some schools around where the High Performance Computing Center or even central IT is sort of enjoined or pushed away by other IT departments. And I've heard of this mainly in like places that have strong schools of engineering. They don't want like a central HPC people to come and talk to their users directly. I'm not going to name the schools. They want, if you want to try to recruit them, you need to talk to the IT department for that particular school or college ahead of time. So that's, and you may have that political situation. That's fine. You don't need to share with that. It's something you got to watch out for if you go to a new place and are trying to do this type of work. The last bullet I had on here was maybe a little bit of an edge case, but you can find on your campus faculty that have awards from NSF, NIH, and they're not already using your resources. And that's definitely worth a call. Is computational science part of what you do? And you can look at their web pages too, but it's nice to connect with them. If there are people going out and getting good awards like that, it's worth talking to them. They may have some students there that have a computational component at the very least in their projects, and I've been co-PI or senior staff on several NSF awards, and I know that my program officer really liked it when we meshed with other people, not necessarily on our own campus, but meshed with others that also had awards to do something, together. So they tend to like that, especially if you get an MRI or other small award to help out your center. So how about non-traditional fields? And I put that in quotes because back when I started, biology was a non-traditional, computational field, and now it's grown to eat up a lot of clusters around here. I know in my experience, I just tossed in a couple of bullets there. We had some social scientists that they found us. It was sort of came together with one of these faculty meetings, and the fact that the social scientists' problems were growing such that they couldn't run them on their desktop system, such that they would fire up their problem and go home, and the job would not be finished in the morning. This is when they figured out that they needed more power, and they remembered that talk from a couple of months ago, that person who came and talked about computational resources. Maybe we'll give them a call. So that was an example of seed sowing. We actually ended up with these social scientists and others in partnership. We actually did a center proposal, NSF centers proposal, which is a big undertaking, and they've never had a social science proposal. Feel free to take this and run with this. This was my previous employer, but we had partners all around, and the compete side wasn't wasn't that huge because, let's face it, the social scientists, you know, not a huge size, not Blue Waters, not the, you know, not a DOE class machine or anything like that. So, are there any stories you might have from your campus of bringing in, and I'm not talking about social science, it could be anything, it could be historians, additional uses, anything lately? You know, it's hard. Go ahead.
Yeah, lately we've seen a explosion of people wanting to do machine learning and not knowing what it is, but they know they want to do it. And I'm getting them from all fields. They just have some data and they think machine learning is the hammer that's going to fix their problem, which is good because now our university has a whole new bunch of junior faculty that are experts at machine learning, and so it's definitely creating ties. But what we're finding is they actually don't need the resources quite yet. They actually need to talk to someone to make sure that they're asking the right questions, and then we can move them on to the resources that's necessary. It's a non-traditional field. Like, they don't actually know what they need. They just know that they can't handle what they have.
They have a pile of data.
Yeah, we're getting just every field that seems like, oh, we have data we want to do something with, but we don't know how. But we heard machine learning will do it for us.
Or when it's deep learning.
Well, yeah. It's just going to write my paper for me.
Yeah.
So, anybody else seeing the same kind of uptick in people asking about doing that? You know, you read a lot in popular science literature about how that's going to solve things, and well, I've heard some nice talks on, you know, people who know what they're doing, and it's very interesting to me. Very interesting that, you know, if you have a pile of data, first thing you need to do is divide that into 3 piles of data, and you know, training, testing, and then validation. And so that, yeah, to me that was when I got that talk, then I started understanding. So, not that my head is that thick, but, you know, it's getting older, so it may be getting a little bit thicker. So, any other fields? I once shared an office for 4 or 5 months with a computational historian. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that was more people from humanities now, and I don't know whether this is because it's deep learning and they feel more addressed by the expression than machine learning. Because that's now, we had always a group that, Shakespeare research, who already worked with us, but now more people asking, oh, deep learning sounds like something I can also do. Only because of the expression. So when they hear it's also machine learning, yeah, it's okay, kind of, but it's really the expression. That refers to something. We make this experience with science gateway. They don't feel addressed with the expression science gateway. And they feel addressed with the expression deep learning. So maybe, you know, we have to think about expressions which are also directly the title of the term addresses other fields. Even so, it's not something different, but yeah, that's the experience.
Any other experience? Is this something that you've ever gone out and looked around for, or it's, you know, you have? I mean, there's only so much time in the day, and everybody has a busy job. So going out and actually looking for or trying to generate a new field, people in non-traditional fields. We had, you know, so feel, and I can, how does it feel when someone at your university, or you hear a story about someone who needed some computational resources and would say to someone else that tells you that, you know, well, we've never heard of Oscar before, or we had not heard of NCSA. This is, you know, I was at Illinois for over 20 years. And we had faculty that's been there a long time. And it's not that big a place. I mean, it's big, but it's, you know, it's not city size. And you promote and promote. You know, I would feel like, you know, I hadn't done my job. I hadn't gotten out there enough. Or someone hadn't. So I know, Rob, the thing you're trying to do, you're trying to make sure everybody's heard of UITS.
It's a challenge, yeah. I mean, on our campus, everybody knows about UITS because they provide email, they provide free storage blocks, just the general IT things.
So they know that.
They know that. They know that really well. What they don't know is that IU has 4 supercomputers. And IU has, you know, an abundant amount of storage for research storage, and that they have the scholarly data archive for, you know, long-term preservation. I mean, they just don't know. And so I'm in UITS, who are the communications folks, to push the research technologies things out as often as they do some of the other. I mean, there are buses that drive around campus and I'm announcing IU Box or announcing IU Canvas or now, you know, I want a bus that says research services and lists the things that's available for researchers. So I'm working on that, but it's, you know, there's a lot less users in the research realm than there is in the general IT realm. So that's sort of the challenge.
All right, got to remember that. Henry, we've got to get a bus.
A bus. Yeah. I want a bus. I said that actually in my interview. I go, we need a bus.
So I got a story. I used to go around all where I went. Oh, I've never heard of this before. It really gets frustrating. But I used to say, there is no cutting edge research that won't need to use some sort of computation. I mean, maybe it's only your desktop, but you're going to need to use a computer. And if you need to go more, we're the people. We've provided services for everybody. And I used to say, except maybe someone in literature, right? Until a poet came to my office and wanted to word count on a very large Twitter data set so she could write some poetry. And we ran it. And it was, and now I could say we had a poet running on our system. It was awesome.
Actually, when IU purchased their last, well, not their last, but second to last supercomputer, it was purchased by Indiana University via the president's office, which is very unusual.
Well,
Technology, right? But his mandate was that we have 150 disciplines using our supercomputer by 2017. So the shirt that I'm wearing actually came out as part of that because the disciplines that over 150 disciplines that were using it by 2016, or a year earlier. So, and you know, literature, music, you name it, and they were using it in some form or another. So it's very interesting, and so it's great for me to be able to go out and have use cases to talk to other researchers when they say, well, I don't need that. Okay, well, how long does that job take on your laptop sitting in your lab at the School of Public Health? Oh, just 4 days. Okay, maybe you do need our service. You know, maybe you do. Oh, but I don't want to have to encrypt my data and move it up and move it back. And okay, well, that would take you 3 hours, and the analysis would take 4 hours. So you've taken your 4 days down to a day, right? So that's part of the challenge too. Is they don't know what they don't. They don't know what they need. They don't know what they need.
so this historian referencing, I mean, his data set was census data. So he was running on census data, you know, the publicly available stuff from 70 plus years ago. So, but that's, that's the area of time he was writing about. Well, that and earlier, but it's really, you think, well, it's a pretty big data set. It's a pretty big data set for a PC, so, but it wasn't really much, a very big data set for, any of our modern clusters that we, especially with the storage capacity. And but he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it otherwise. The things that he wanted to do for his papers. Any other words of wisdom about recruiting?
Okay. Sorry, I'll do some and then we'll
Okay.
go over. Oh, we got a lot of good ones. Wow. Okay, you go first. It's not going to be a while.
So one thing that I think is pretty cool that we do, so we have a communications team that will they'll do some different things with our researchers, like put together some science articles about the computing research that they're doing. But we also give the researchers kind of like a soapbox to stand up on to tell their colleagues in the university just what they're doing. So what we'll do is we'll reserve a room on campus for an hour and a half, get some snacks and drinks, and just bring people together and people can hear about what they're doing. Like we had a psychologist. Research was, we had a geographer, so he was using maps to determine the political science in Ghana. It just it was all over the place. Like, really cool projects, but giving that soapbox for them to kind of just project what they've been doing.
Yeah,
helped get the word out.
Henry, do you have?
I got a ton of them. Okay. Beyond faculty, getting on grad students' radar is helpful. Sometimes the PIs haven't really thought through their computing needs, and it falls to the grad students doing the work to figure it out. Drexel has one business analytics user consistently in the top 10 usage. We had one business researcher looking at a particularly small business segment, a specific small business segment. We had one social science agent modeling researcher. We have a couple of public health researchers doing statistical models, and one query from a law school researcher. How about the increased support needs for people from non-traditional fields? How do you fulfill all those needs? They may need people who actually work on the implementation or figure out the algorithm, which sound like established fields. Here, I assume this means traditional research computing consumers, such as physics and chemistry, that either have the expertise or have established code to work with. We have one major user applying machine learning, deep learning to bioinformatics. It helps to have a programmer on the HPC team, especially one who has experience with a wide range of languages and or technology. Sounds like some users could also benefit from consulting with a data scientist, someone that understands statistics, machine language, algorithms, etc. If research computing doesn't have someone like that, I know some schools have office hours in statistics departments or people who you can talk to in the library, which is a whole separate issue about collaborating with libraries. But open hours is a good idea. We are likely to implement that over in the biology research building so that the bioinformatics crowd can just stop by. We have developed relationships with the coordinator of the postdoctoral community, as well as the grad student coordinator, and we regularly disseminate information to them that may be useful, such as upcoming software carpentry workshops on campus, or opportunities to participate in things like the Open Science Grid School. I recently had to do a presentation on non-traditional uses for HPC. I had great luck simply taking our course titles, history, psychology, etc., and adding using supercomputing in Google. It turns out a lot of people are bragging about their use cases for these areas.
So we have open hours here as well, which we broadcast out, and in conjunction actually with the library. So Forrest has one afternoon, and I have one morning. One or two of the informaticists at the library, and have open consulting hours. Now I do a couple other sets of consulting hours without the library folks per week, but we definitely sit with them, and when someone comes in either looking for the library side or for the HBC side, we all sit and listen, and so in some cases people who know the library side have actually sort of moved over to HBC or want to use their thing in a much more robust manner than they're using. And we've also had folks coming in on the HBC side who they want to use, they use MATLAB, or they use R or Python, and while I'm conversant in those areas, some of our informaticists are much more expert than Horst and I in those things. So when we're sitting together, it's really helpful that there's somebody who really knows R rather than I who just sort of knows R, and can help people get on the R machine and use it. That sort of synergy, at least here, has been working. The open hours and the fact that we do some of them with our friends at the library. Just for fun, I thought we'd pull up. So that's this year's chart. You can find these on the portal at portal.exceed.org. This is SUs, the normal charge units for 2018, all the way up to date. XDMod will run every day, so this is all the way up to yesterday. And you can see I think there's 11 of these around the outside, and then all of 100 others take this big pie piece up. And this is charged hours. Have a quick look at this. So neuroscience biology has had 7.3 million jobs completed this year. Jobs completed. This is on Exceed. You go back over here, they're not one of the top 11 users as far as total number of hours. They run gobs and gobs of jobs. And by they, so it's always fun for me to look at. By they, I mean maybe 10 or 15 users. Maybe it's 2 users. That bottom line is just the average of the 100 that are not listed up there, categories.
Can you roll back to the one that shows them doing the majority of jobs?
Yeah.
So if I were the Exceed people, the first thing I do is go talk to them and find out why they are running zillions of tiny jobs instead of clumping them together in some way. And I'm sure that the answer would turn out to be because they didn't know that that was a thing or how to do it.
Yeah.
I would want next year to not show that at all.
So I'm sure that these are, I don't know. I'm almost certain this must be running on Jetstream or at San Diego on a little video, or lots of little videos, and lots of small jobs, tiny jobs. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing either, but it's a little bit interesting. Of course, the big bar up there for use in 2018, 985 training accounts. So that includes classrooms and other trainings that they did. But outside of that, you should also, at least for the year, just probably not worry too much about lines 3 and 4 there. I think most of the Exceed staff and other people are included in one of those two categories. I can't remember which. But the others are, instructive as to the number of projects or active users, and that's for the whole. That's for the whole year. I'm sure you can get a list if you drill down somewhere else and get actual numbers for all 110, 120 fields. It's a little easier to look at when there are only 14 fields, but then again, you didn't get quite as much differentiation between the different types of science. Anyhow, so I don't know if you know anyone doing these particular things on your campus. If you can identify someone doing all of those, I wouldn't be too surprised if you're at a big campus. If you're in a small campus, no, you're not going to have quite so many.
UT Dallas, our chess team is using supercomputer. Our leader speaker, Jay Perez, he is actually pretty good in chess. His kids are state champions, so they used to run on desktop. Now he's using our cluster to run their chess competition. That's a new one.
As long as they're not doing analysis overnight. In a suspended match. So that's something. So past this, I didn't really have anything else for this discussion. Anyone would like to throw anything else out for this particular discussion? I'd like to hear it. I've used up all my prepared prompts. So anything else come in, Henry?
I'm checking now. Yes. Toward the idea of open hours, at Doane University, we're creating a writing center for programming, where anyone can stop in and get help with their coding or even how to start using programming for whatever. We hope that they will eventually want to expand into large-scale applications on an HPC system. I really like that idea, but I wonder what the labor cost is going to work out to be.
They have something going on at the Innovation Hub now, but
Where they have a coding lab,
yeah,
not on a drop-in basis or on an appointment basis.
it's a drop-in.
Okay.
And well, they have a scheduled coding get-together.
How are they disseminating that information?
It's on weekends. As far as I can tell, on message boards inside the Innovation Hub and on their website.
Okay.
But outside of that, I haven't seen any other.
Do you want to offer to them that we have a way to drum up more business for them?
I can do that, yeah.
Because if they're going to offer that, okay. Labor or chargeback, do they ask if it's part of a grant or not? I assume that's in reference to the costs. Right now, we're working on staffing with students with a little overlap with our IT student workers, so they learn more about coding while helping others. And Anita, can you flesh your question out a little bit more?
Sure, it was just in response to just in general about the idea of doing that and getting the business, and then, you know, having staff be specifically assigned to that. We just don't find that we can afford to leave staff in a situation like that because we're too short-staffed, I guess is my point.
So I was just recently hired on, and my position is currently funded by a grant, and I will eventually be taken up by the university as full-time staff on the IT's budget, depending on what our other grants work out to be. So a lot of this is still in the works, so I don't have, an ability to speak to its success or long-term stability.
So yeah, the condo buy-in here is we help maintain your hardware and answer questions that you send into support. And Horst and I occasionally provide some training. We'll have some coming up soon, and of course we're always offering. Sometimes to, you know, a bit of a stiff arm, but we always offer to come to your office and sit with you. Other people are great with that. They love you to come over, or they like to meet with you at the library. But others, could you just answer the question, please, and I'll get back to mine. Which usually turns into like 3 or 4 different questions.
Wait, get more on the chat. Schools all have a writing center and a math center. Why not a coding center on the same model?
Anyone else have a coding center? Anyone have one of those?
I know we have one at UT. It's just like a programming clinic. They have certain hours where you can walk in and just get help.
So at Tennessee they do? Okay.
I don't know particularly anything that, but
Do you know who runs it?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know that at a couple of places that I've worked before, they've had data science drop-in hours that are largely staffed by advanced undergraduates who provide support either to fellow students or to faculty who have analytical questions, you know, kind of like you're saying, like, oh, I want to, you know, do a sentiment analysis on some Twitter feeds. How can I start doing that? And they'll have canned code, or they'll work through some of the statistical functions that could be helpful, you know, or doing some geospatial analyses through GIS or whatever. But just general kind of data science stuff. And I know that at Lafayette, we're looking to do that too. We would like to. We're not at a point right now that we can, but we're working towards that sort of a drop-in model, or, you know, training some students to staff something like that.
Yeah, it's all in priority of how you have to spend your, you know, spend your capital as far as your people.
From Zoomland, at George Washington University, we have one, but mostly focused on statistics support. We also have coding consultations called STEMworks. Not yet as closely connected to research computing, but this initiative is just getting going. You are right, and many have statistics labs. However, some of the centers require chargeback to help offset their costs, so it depends on the projects. University of Delaware just opened a data science institute as well. And so my own comment on this, in my experience, the extent to which you can do chargebacks is almost entirely a function of the per faculty member on average. Can I do my little screed about that, tell my little story?
Sure.
Okay, so about 8 years ago, I happened to be on a committee organizing an event, and one of the people on the committee was my counterpart, another HPC Center director at a, I'm not sure if they're top 10, but certainly top 20 research university. And this person said, I could run my HPC Center with 0 hardware funding, and that seemed very plausible to me. And then they said, and any other university could do the same. And I knew that was not plausible. I knew that would not work here, but I couldn't at that moment articulate why. And so I looked up for each institution 2 numbers, annual research expenditure and number of faculty, to get an average, right? What's the average annual research expenditure per faculty member at each institution? And what I came up with was, at that institution, that at least top 20 institution, their annual research expenditure was 4 times as high as OU's. In fact, their annual internal research expenditure, using, I assume, foundation funds, or whatever you'd call it, endowment funds, was equal to OU's annual external research expenditure. So the average faculty member there had 5 times as much research funding per year as the average faculty member here. So how does this play into the question of how much they can afford to pay for stuff? So any given faculty member, there's an upper limit on how many people they can manage. I'm going to make up a number and say it's 10. It might be 5, it might be 20. Of course, it varies by faculty member. Of course, there are special circumstances. But to first order, 10 is probably a good guess. So at that institution, pretty much every faculty member, or certainly on average, every faculty member already has their 10 because they've got tons of money. Here, a typical faculty member has 2 or 3. So here, if more money comes in for someone, they're going to maximize their productivity by hiring more people. So if they double their money, they're going to hire another 2 or 3 grad students. Maybe they'll hire a postdoc. There's a very low probability they'll hire a staff member. That almost doesn't happen here. At their institution, if new money comes in, they're going to spend it on things that will make the people they've already hired more productive. So one of the things they can spend it on is machines, right? Because the machines will make their individual team members more productive, and as the individual team members become more productive, then they as a faculty member are more productive. So the reason that that person could run their center with no hardware money is because the people that they were serving had money to burn. And I talked with a colleague who had gone from an institution like ours to an institution like theirs. And he said, yes, that is exactly right. When he was at the institution like ours, he never had money, he was always broke. And now that he's at the institution like theirs, he literally doesn't know what to do with all the money people are trying to give him. And he has to turn down money because he can't keep adding more people onto his team and effectively manage them. Yeah, I know. And his diamond shoes are too tight, and his wallet isn't big enough for all the hundreds, but still. Emery, are you talking about research funding from the university itself or including external funders? So at OU, the amount of internal research funding per faculty member is approximately 0. At this top 20 institution, it was approximately equal to what it is at OU on a per faculty member basis. So there, I don't remember what the actual numbers per faculty were, but their external per faculty member on average was 4 times as high as our external funds per faculty member on average per year. So it was a very apples to apples comparison.
Well, should we wrap up this session?
Sounds good. Are there any more questions out in TV land? Okay, let's do this.